Sorry, I got like things playing like all over the place trying to get the link to it. Like, whoa. Anyway, so welcome back to ChirpCast. We got my good buddy JimmyD here to give us a bunch of updates on Vigor and some other stuff. JimmyD, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Things are really like busy, and of course, like super busy in life, but also just super busy in the EOS space. It's going nuts over here, man.
It is. It is. And it like I sort of feel like we're getting close to this inflection point that I kind of always assumed was going to happen. I mean, that argument to me that Ethereum can keep going and like maybe do sharding someday. And I know we talked about this before, but like that their whole thing could get gummed up by one app that's doing well. And EOS is over here like, if we ever get gummed up, we'll just spawn copies of ourselves and like make perfect use cases that can all talk to each other, that kind of thing. Like, it really does seem like we're at this point where EOS will be impossible to ignore. Like the entire ecosystem will be impossible to ignore pretty soon.
Yeah, and actually, I came across a post earlier today that kind of was interesting. It was something that Ultra actually retweeted. And it was basically some guy on Voice who had, dropped his portfolio and the dynamics of his portfolio on the screen. And I forget what the allocations were, but he had Bitcoin, Ethereum, some few other coins. But the funny thing was he had no EOS. He was posting on a social platform that is built on EOS about his portfolio allocation. And he had no EOS or EOSIO in his portfolio. And I thought that was like, whoever posted it pointed out that it was quite ironic, but I think it's, more than ironic. I think it's absolutely hilarious. And I think that's, where we're going to shine is you're going to have all these people using all these dApps, probably especially gaming NFTs that aren't even going to know they're on blockchain, and potentially DeFi as well. And that's it's going to be huge. So, I mean, like you said, inflection point. I'm not really sure what inflection point you mean, unless you mean the inflection point whereby EOS is not a stable coin, because it's pretty much.
It's been an obnoxiously stable asset for a while. Yeah, just that like I guess the spot where the people that have been like, I had a Genesis account, right? I've been watching everything for the last couple of years. And it's been really amazing to see the number of people building, the number of people that drop off, and I think that is true of any market cycle, right? It was just true for this as well. But I think that the DeFi thing is key, and I think you're totally right about NFTs as well. It does get to this point where it's not just the people that are sort of in this ecosystem, right? It then becomes that capacity where the number of users that we will see in this kind of family or whatever is going to 10x in the next 12 months.
Yeah, and 100%. And I think so I guess the big news of last week was Google joining as a block producer. Mixed feelings across the board on that one.
I did see some of those, yes.
Yeah, I quite like it, and I wouldn't call anyone out and say that they're wrong, whether you love or whether you hate EOS. I mean, there's some really good, really valid points across the board from people who are in the space and people who are praising it or criticizing it from beyond. But I think there's a lot to unpack there. Where do you want to start?
I think that's interesting. I think we probably should touch on that. I mean, like from the negative side, I saw somebody comment that Google just wants all the data, right? Which is, I think, a valid argument. I mean, the second you're a block producer, you have all the data. I mean, you're producing blocks, you're keeping a copy of the blockchain. That kind of makes sense. What do you think about the idea that they're not going to be taking any block rewards?
Yeah, so I don't know if I really understood that. Like they said, they're not going to take any block rewards. So where are the block rewards going to go? I'm trying to have a hard time sussing that out. I mean, I just kind of wonder if they kind of meant that they're not interested in the block rewards. Like I can't. It just kind of seems strange to me that any corporation would. It's kind of like a millionaire walking into a Lexus dealership and saying, how much is this top of the line Lexus? And then the guy says, oh, it's, I don't know, whatever Lexuses go for. I'm not really up to date with that. pick the wrong car. And then they said, oh, really? Well, I'm going to give you $20,000 more than what it's worth. This doesn't make any sense, right? Even the millionaire is going to try to get a better deal, right? So the fact that you have this multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar potentially company coming in and they're going to be a block producer and they're just not going to take the rewards doesn't make any sense to me. So like maybe they're not interested in them. Maybe they're not going to take them and sell them. Like I don't know. Maybe you have more clarity on that than me, but I don't really understand.
I don't the only thing that really makes sense to me, because I think you're right on all those points, is that maybe they're in a process where they still think there's some potential legal liability. So then they have they're a much fatter target than even EOS, right? With the billions they have sloshing around in their coffers. So that I mean, again, I don't know. It's just
actually, that's a really valid point. I never thought about that. That's maybe one of the reasons that they don't want to do it. Yeah,
right.
They're, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of torn because right now making money in crypto isn't really that easy. Like, most people, especially in EOS, most people are losing money or have lost money since the ICO, right?
Yeah.
But and that goes across all spaces. I mean, it goes across Ethereum. I mean, it doesn't really go across Bitcoin because there isn't really much you can do with Bitcoin, other than
stare at it, poke it with a stick.
Yeah, and trade it. But I mean, like, I guess traders are losing money as well when they're playing with these leverage applications and stuff like that. But I think like in the future, once these applications get built out, like once people start using these applications and there's real world viability to what they provide, like a couple off the top of my head, beyond DeFi, look at a project like Blockbase. I don't know if you're familiar with Blockbase, but they're a great project. They're providing data on the blockchain and a marketplace for normal people to be able to spin up data provision and people to be able to host that data. And that's a real world use case. And the token, in my opinion, is not financial advice, by the way, but completely undervalued because nobody knows about it and nobody's pushing it. So that's essentially what Google does, right? They take this data, and then they use it for marketing. So what happens when that whole dynamic changes? When you've got individuals or smaller companies that are providing these points of data, which is maybe, in my opinion, why Google's interested in EOS, because with DPoS, the paradigm for EOS, it kind of seems like it's more, I don't want to say advanced because people are going to not like this, especially people who are upset about EOS, but it is more advanced in terms of how integrated all of the block producers are. Whether you have issues with how they operate or not is beside the point. The level of integration, in my opinion, between the block producers in EOS can reach far beyond anything that we've ever seen on a global scale. Because it's likely that if this works out well for Google, you'll have other top companies from around the world that are going to want to do it as well. You'll have companies from China or companies from Europe. And so when was the last time you ever saw Google in a room collaborating with Rakuten or any of these other major Asian, marketplaces or companies? Amazon in a room collaborating with, top dogs in China or financial institutions in Europe. And I think this is a really interesting test case to see how all of this data and how all of this consensus mechanisms will work together when you do have these major corporations plus the people who are, I don't know what the word is for it, the block producers that aren't major corporations, the block producers that we have now. You have this balance, and I think it'll be really interesting to see in terms of data and aggregation of what happens in the chain, and what progressions are made, and where the hiccups happen, and who oversteps their bounds where.
Right. Well, see, and that's kind of always been the interesting. And so we try to break down every acronym on this show because there is a lot of people that because again, we're still we're interviewing people that are active on the Chirp platform, of course. And actually, the last episode we just did was a friend of mine, Ash Gallagher, who's an ex-war correspondent. So that was a wide-ranging conversation for sure. But DPoS means Delegated Proof of Stake, which means that the block producers that are running the EOS blockchain basically have a bunch of EOS itself delegated, like staked, basically set aside. And if I'm not mistaken, basically if they screw it up, that is forfeit. And then of course, I think there's an entire governance mechanism around how we pick who those the 21 main block producers are, and how many. Like there's dozens of secondary block producers, right?
Yeah, I can't remember the number exactly, but I think we're up, like, I think it's 40, 50 something that are standby block producers that get some form of reward, some percentage of reward.
Right.
So yeah. And they're voted in quite frequently. And I mean, that's a whole another issue. I mean, people calling collusion, people worried about, a cartel, or people worried about, I mean, I think if you're in EOS long enough, you've got a bone to pick with at least a few block producers, and it's going to be different for everyone.
Right. Well, and I think that's sort of, welcome to democracy. It's super messy. Yeah. Right? Like I don't think there's a solve for that anywhere on Earth just yet. But it'll be interesting to see what the capacity is for, because I mean, like people talk about EOS not being decentralized, which of course I think is a joke, because there's like 4 main block producers on Bitcoin, and a few secondaries. But it, like that, I always say, and I'm pretty confident with this, that EOS is actually more decentralized than Bitcoin is, and people get up in arms about that, but that's just kind of true, right? And it's messy, and there's corporations involved, and they can create conglomerates, but they'll be creating conglomerates just like the major Bitcoin miners have done. And I kind of hope that, well, 2 things. One, we have the capacity to actually vote and have some bit of a say. So there's like a social governance mechanism there that I think is really interesting. But on the flip side, like as an app or as a community or whatever, you can always just leave.
Yeah.
Right. Like Telos is waiting for you right now, or, Proton, or frickin', Wax, if you want to go over there. Like there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't just jump to a chain that has a better governance system, or that is doing things more specifically that will help your DApp or your community.
Yeah. When I think that's an issue between, I think that's an issue, a sore point for a lot of, Genesis EOS holders that bought in to token sales, because they see all these other chains spinning up, and they think, wow, this is a problem, because why isn't this built on EOS? Why isn't this running on EOS? Why is there another chain? I think the beauty behind it actually is the fact that you can spin up a chain that, cuts out certain aspects of governments like Telos has done, or that is tailored towards NFTs or gaming, such as Wax or Ultra are targeting. Proton, a nice little mix between what makes Ethereum great, and the guys behind that always on their push towards easy onboarding, and saying that everything in EOS is way too difficult. And let's face it, they're not wrong. I mean, EOS is a great blockchain, but try onboarding someone into EOS that, like, it's probably easier to onboard someone in EOS that doesn't know anything about blockchain. You just send them to Wombat Wallet, and they think, "Oh, this is easy." But someone who's used to Ethereum and not having to pay for an account, this causes issues. So, but yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of, well, it's a good segue actually, but I think in the future there's going to be a lot of dApps that are going to use many chains or a few of these chains.
That one of the conversations that and Kurt thought I was completely nuts in the beginning, and it's since I feel like I've kind of been vindicated. So we're still trying to decide which blockchain to attach Chirp to, right? And I have a sneaky suspicion that it will be more than one.
Yeah, it should be.
Right. Why? Like, what's the downside? Because I mean, the downside for us, and this is what happened with Lynx, right? Lynx, spins up. Obviously, they've become Proton aware. Lynx spins up, and then they suddenly, make a deal, and that chain is dead. That chain's gone, and so we had to completely and totally change literally everything that we were doing. So it's a major risk for us to attach ourselves to any chain, and the more established ones we talked about, actually just doing EOS mainnet. Obviously, it's a lot more established, and we can have more certainty as far as our own risk profile as far as where we're going to go or whatever. But then I was like, seriously, what is the damage? What's the downside to creating an architecture that actually has us connected to more than one blockchain? And I mean, it just sounded stupid to people that are smarter than me. And that's fair. Right. But now it's like, I think it spawned a conversation where instead of, launching coins, which is the token that Chirp runs onto one blockchain, we might, just keep it as internal. That is a conversation isn't going ongoing. But now, I mean, every single channel on Chirp that is even remotely connected to any kind of token or token community is going to be able to basically have its own tokenized mine. Like we're going to be able to turn attention into tokens like crazy. Like every token can just have its own dust mine on Chirp, which is going to be completely bananas for.
I saw that. So actually, it's a pretty cool little system. So yeah, I'm involved with. You might know this, your viewers might not, but I'm involved in a weird random way with like so many weird projects. So when I come on here, it gets exciting, but everything you say, I want to talk about something.
It does make these interviews very, very easy because I know you're connected to very cool things
different every time. But we actually we recently introduced the whole dust feature function into our Boyd Telegram chat.
Nice,
and it's pretty cool. And then so I've been following what's been going on with that, and it kind of seems like you guys are just starting with that. You're going to build it up, and there's going to be if my understanding is correct, I think you're going to be offering different tokens as well.
Yeah, any token that wants to come in. The whole pitch is, we're doing Telos as the test one right off the bat. So if you go to the hashtag Telos channel on Chirp and make a post, you get 10 Telos. If you like something, you get 1 Telos. And basically it's just going to be a situation where you're incentivized to drop by, just like the dust mine or what have you, right? Like that.
So everything comes full circle, right? Because like that's another interesting take as well, is like, you guys are porting over from EOS in your dust to be able to integrate with Telos. Like Boyd as well has done the same thing. Part of what we're doing is actually running on Telos as well. We're still on EOS, but we bridged the gap and we're running some nodes and things on Telos as well, which is kind of cool. Like for all the flack that people give one another in the EOS community, there is that synergy where applications are more than happy to take part of something and run with it. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. I mean that the ability to then cross-pollinate ideas all over the place, I think is huge. And these blockchains can talk to each other natively. Like that, just it's a relatively easy thing to do as a non-dev, for the record. Like I've heard smarter people than me talk about that. So yeah, I mean, the vision is, in a year when you come to Chirp, there's 500 tokenized projects that are not only have it set up so that if you go to Boyd, you get a little Boyd token every time you come in and comment or make a post. But if you wanted to sponsor, if I as a goofball example, right? Like, I'm going to eventually have a Shipple set up for this. I would love to basically, farm that out. I mean, it's a community token anyway, right? So like, what if like EOS Go, or if the JimmyD channel, or if my friend the Dividend Report, Seth from the Dividend Report, wanted to integrate a Shipple mine, I could basically budget for it. I could fill up the account for that, and that channel could be mining that cryptocurrency. And I think you're going to be able to set up deals where you could be, if you were a really, really popular channel, you could have 5 tokens that were awarded every single time that somebody popped in and stopped by, right? So we want to have this, we want to have it set up so that any token that wants to basically invest some of their token in attention is going to have many, many ways to do it on Chirp, and it will redound to the benefit of the entire community.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of pretty cool social platforms out there, but I have to say, like, one of the nice things about the vision of Chirp, as I understand it, um, going back way back to its inception, in version 1, is the fact that you actually have to pay to play. You don't have to pay very much. I mean, it's nothing. the cost of the electricity to have your computer, your Keitai on, is more than you're paying, to put a post on Chirp. But you do have to pay to play. Like a lot of these other platforms, they offer like tipping function, or they have sponsors show ads to be able to reward users that post. When other people like. But what I like about Chirp is that it's, I'm not sure if this is the right word, but it's capitalist heavy in the sense that every action, whether you're posting or whether you're liking, every action has a cost to it. And the more you, and the more you interact, potentially, the more action you will get, and that makes sense to me, as opposed to just giving away shit for free. Like, because I mean, so I'm going to go off on a little bit of a rant here, but let's face it, part of the reason we're in the mess that we're in right now is because people just give shit away for free, and then the people who don't give shit away for free are the people who take shit that other people have for free without them knowing about it, and then we end up with a globalized economy that's messed up, like the one that's sitting outside my door right now. But
confirm.
So no, but I mean, it's kind of like, by trade, one of my jobs is I'm a teacher, right? And it's ridiculous, like, if you're a professor, if you're a teacher, how entitled we become in the Western society. It's like we want everything for free. And this is part of the problem with social media. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I watched it the other night and it just blew my mind.
The social dilemma.
The social dilemma. And it was a lot of stuff I knew, but the best part about it was at the end when they said, no, we won't let our kids use these social platforms.
Right. Right.
Like, and it was great for anyone who's watching. I would highly recommend that you watch it. But it was great, like, to think of a platform like Chirp that people control their own kind of little spaces and their own kind of little spheres, right? It's not top heavy monitored approach, right? So going back to the whole Google thing and the data thing, I get it. I get that maybe, they want access to the data. But the nice thing about being on EOS and having access to that data is they can't really do anything other than have access to it. They can't, take the data and manipulate the users as they are doing now by owning the whole system themselves. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. Like, it's basically like, I mean, and it's Google. This is sort of what they've done, right? They scour the entire internet and basically read the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And then categorize it, make it searchable, that kind of thing. It would make financial sense for them to be doing that on blockchains. Like, it is an extremely a data rich open environment where you can glean a ridiculous amount. No, you can glean a ridiculous amount of information from the way that transactions flow on that blockchain, right? So I mean, that just makes sense for them. That's entirely within the scope of their mission.
Well, in a way, it's actually a little bit more scary because on blockchain, everything is transparent. So they have access to more data that's probably more true in a computing sense than what they do just by an internet where some data could be fake, right?
Right.
But I think with blockchain, they can't manipulate that data to send users in a direction that maybe users don't want to go, right? They can definitely benefit from understanding all of that data that they have, but they can't push users into a certain frame or aspect. And that's kind of what I kind of feel like Chirp is kind of good at, because when I go on there, I can kind of, I guess not now, but subscribe to channels in the future, I guess. And it'll be like your normal social experience, but I'm not being shown ads that are targeting my vulnerabilities, that are reading my data and things like that.
Yeah, I think that, and this is because you're right. We don't have that now. You sort of see everything, right? Because it's still new. But the mission that we have is to make as much of the experience opt-in as humanly possible, right? So that means like you're going to pick the channels that you're going to post in, you're going to pick the channels that you're going to follow, you're going to pick the channels that you're going to create, and that will curate your entire experience, on the app. As far as we've got the top right corner on the web app is going to be sponsored, right? So and anybody can just do that. We're not going to have any control over who. Yeah, well, granted, the second I'm saying that, I'm like, we would probably exercise some editorial control at some point if the KKK wanted to advertise on our platform. Like, yeah, no.
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, I mean, as far as censorship, I'll just tell you right now, we will fucking do it. Like,
yeah, fair enough. I mean, that's your prerogative.
Yeah, I mean,
if I was in that situation, really.
And the biggest thing is I had to ask myself, like, would I be a part of something that would be enabling, those kind of groups, and I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be able to do it. And luckily, when I had a heart-to-heart with the team about that, they were completely and totally on board. And again, like the ways that we do that, especially as we scale, I mean, that's not a trivial issue. That's not going to be a trivial problem. But we're committed to dealing with it in the most efficient and fair ways humanly possible. And then eventually, what we would like to see is more of a Reddit model, right? Where the people who own the channels are going to have moderator controls for themselves, and only in extreme situations where the entire channel itself is something that the entire platform wants to take a look at. Will we take a look at that? And I think it's going to be a dictatorship early on, but I would love to see a model where there is a sort of a public governance model that allows the entire Chirp community to make decisions.
I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. That first point that you brought up, like that was one of the big issues with EOS on Reddit. I mean, the EOS Reddit channel had been taken over for a couple years, and it was almost a year for Cheney Moore and some of the guys involved with EOS
Jacques, I think, yeah.
Jack Wales from Discussions app to like get it back.
Yeah.
I don't like anyone who thinks, it's kind of like you said, there's all these people that have these ideas about censorship and moderation that are kind of, a lot of times they're pushing their own agenda, in my opinion. I mean, if you look at EOS, like you said, 21 block producers, it's way more decentralized than a lot of those other blockchains that are out there. I mean,
significantly more than Bitcoin. And I know like the maxis get really, really up in arms when you say that, but it's easily proved. Go look at the companies that it's like 3 companies that own 70% of Bitcoin mining. That's ridiculous. And they all know each other, and they could all easily vote together and completely and totally take it anywhere they want. And the only reason why they don't is because they need for the maximalists to believe the myth.
Well, there's enough of them that, because the ones that didn't really agree, they left, they created Bitcoin Cash, and we all know how
right. That went great.
So those maximalists kind of split into 2 groups, and then that group split. Yeah, but fair enough. But yeah, I think like you said, some moderation or authoritarian government type of structure isn't always a bad thing. Unlike what other projects might be doing. Why did I get up and walk to the kitchen?
I don't know. It seems very important though. I feel like I'm getting a tour of your ceiling.
Well, you can have a tour of my ceiling if you want. There's not much ceiling, but you can have a tour of Japan if you want. I can give you the nighttime tour.
Yes, please.
All right. So yeah, here's the nighttime tour of Japan.
Nice.
You can't really see it in the daytime, but there's a cool like little river that runs through there and a nice little park. So
cool.
I've been recently pondering about what I'm gonna do when I make bank with all my crypto investments. Am I going to move to a seaside town, or am I, going to invest in a stand-up paddleboard and see if I can just paddle down this river without getting gonorrhea or something?
Life goals.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah. But
awesome.
yeah, like there's a lot of Osaka is a nice city. There's a lot of lights out there. Which let's go towards lights and all the lights that are on at night, and computers that people don't turn off. As crazy as that is in the city, one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk to you about today was Boyd, actually, and what's going on with the. I know you're interested in Boyd, but what's going on?
I love that project. Yeah. So go on.
Yeah. So Boyd, for anyone who doesn't know, it's basically it's a social computing network where they utilize your free CPU and GPU to be able to run complex mathematical calculations. And we operate in seasons and in teams. And people will join the teams and they essentially mine Boyd. And by mining Boyd, they hand over that resource power. It's all determined by people who, the people who are doing it can set it up so that that resource power doesn't affect their everyday computer operations. It's only on at night and things like that. And we just finished season 4, and season 4 was dedicated to coronavirus research, which was kind of cool. Well, not just, but which was pretty cool. But some news with Boyd. Boyd, basically, we just kind of ported towards testing out a new DAC structure. As you were mentioning with Chirp, at some point in time, you might want to have some kind of community governance model. So we've been testing out a new DAC structure. With an exciting new project on EOS called DAClify. And DAClify, Vigor is actually also testing out DAClify as well. It's kind of a new DAC structure on EOS that builds upon the other DAC structures, but offers like module plugins and some really kind of cool stuff. So Boyd's lucky enough, and Vigor as well, to be able to test out this kind of system and make sure that it works. So within that, we've got a lot of community stuff going on. And Boyd, we've decided to toss our hands into the whole NFT game. So as you might know, Atomic Assets recently just basically released their kind of Atomic Hub on EOS, which I think is going to bring, some pretty cool stuff to EOS as well. Hard to say because, I'm also a big fan of Pixios, but Pixios is making the move towards the UX network at some point. Not really sure what's happening or when things are happening with UX.
Excuse me.
That's another thing. Actually, I'll drop that in the chat right now, just as a side note. There is a UX content competition that is happening right now, whereby there's some UX up for grabs for some people who might have a good idea of a dApp that is operational on UX. So for anyone who's a writer or might want to be interested in tossing their idea in the ring for a financially compliant blockchain, UX is a whole nother episode, I think. So I won't get too bogged down into that. But please throw your hat in the ring. I'm not responsible for the judging. I'm just kind of the bearer of the news. So Boyd, we're offering up some NFTs, and I think the cool thing about these Boyd NFTs is that they're going to actually enable people who are mining to credit their account with some sorts of bonuses. And to us, this kind of seems like the future of NFTs. I mean, collectibles are great. They're awesome. But let's face it, I don't know. Did you ever collect anything? Did you collect comic books, baseball cards, anything like that when you were a kid, Corey?
Yeah, a little bit. And it goes in waves. Like there's a diehard collectible community. And I think like there will be some tie-ins with the fine art community as well.
Yep.
That I think while and like Kurt is now famous for thinking that entire sector of the market is completely nuts, but he also thinks the stock market is stupid. So he is one of many opinions. So I'm working with Uplift dot art and Blue releasing another version of Bitcoin Bull that I actually made or provided the music for.
Yeah,
so that's gonna be fun.
I heard that the other day. That's awesome, by the way. I've been on a tear throwing that out to the community. I really like it. Yeah, it was amazing, actually.
Nice. So yeah, that's gonna be November 7th. If you want updates on that, go to uplift.art and throw your email in there for that. And we're gonna be doing the whole auction thing. But and Blue's got this crazy freaking, apparently it's like a tops drop. There's, it's going to be gamified. There's going to be all sorts of different variations. But one of the things that I think ties into where you were headed is, a lot of it is collectible, but because of the system that Uplift had created, you can now basically, excuse me, like airdrop things or send things out to people that are holding specific NFTs or specific groups of NFTs. So it creates this situation where it's like an access ownership kind of thing. Like you own a ticket or you own a key to this door. And of course, once you tie in the games, I think, it all sort of ends up at Ready Player One eventually. But yeah, so I think getting the mixture of that collectible thing for the people that are really going to be into that, and there will be, a few, and they're super fun, is going to be good. But I think that secondary layer of gamification that I think Topps has been messing around with, and Blockchain Heroes did really well, is going to be another cool element that is going to be for this drop as well. And yeah, I mean that music, music, the whole idea that you can now, own a collectible NFT based on a piece of music, I think is going to be really interesting as well.
Yeah. So no offense to straight up collectibles, because I used to frequent comic book stores when I was a kid, and I mean, every time I talk to my mom says, well, if I move, I'm going to have to do something with your comic books.
Right.
Collecting dust, and I'm like, they're not collecting dust, they're sealed in plastic and taped together in a box. No dust is getting in there.
Yeah,
let me check and see what they're worth. 5 cents less than what I paid for it. Awesome. But like, that's the point, right? Like I think, like, like you said, with the whole Uplift art model, I think there's a lot of really interesting things that can come out of that. Number one, you've got the music video that I can't even start with that one, because I just think that that's just an amazing idea. Number two, you have this model where you can drop things. Like when a company moves in and figures this out, and they can target advertisements. I mean, think about what NFTs could become. I mean, as simple and silly of an idea as this is, I'm going to reveal my brilliant idea on this show. This is the first time I've ever revealed it. So one of your users is going to steal it. That's okay. I'll just, send me a tip sometime. But like coupons, what is a coupon other than a targeted marketing device? Think about this. You have access to all of the information that's on the blockchain. You can send the NFT in a form of a coupon with what Wax is building and what Wax has done. When that coupon is used, you can pull it up on your phone, for example. Mm-hmm. Somebody can scan that coupon. When that coupon is used, the NFT is automatically burnt, so it can't be used again. Yep. I mean, just a simple idea like coupons, or like food vouchers or restaurant discounts or things like that. Make it fun, make it interesting, make it exciting, right? These are actual goods that could be targeted from an advertising perspective. They could be used. I mean, potentially every time that someone watched a music video as an NFT, a portion of funds could be released to that producer or producer, musician, or whatever. Like you could probably potentially write this up in smart contracts, right? Yeah. Boyd's done something a little bit opposite. What Boyd's done is Boyd's kind of done a similar thing with Uplift Art, whereby you can see who has what in their account, but having that card in your account will actually entitle you to some kind of mining bonus. So it will give you a boost in the Boyd power that will give your mining of. So by by donating, this is actually really confusing, but by not donating, but by giving the spare GPU and CPU to Boyd to be able to use for complex mathematical computations, you're rewarded in Boyd.
So that's basically what Boyd mining is the spare CPU, GPU on your computer is getting used to handle. And I'm so excited that you guys were doing this with COVID. It was cancer markers back a couple of years ago when I first started messing around with it. So that's like when we talk about Boyd mining, that's basically just like your screensaver mode is now being used to do really cool things, and they reward you with Boyd token.
Yes. And so these NFTs, when you hold these NFTs in your account for the Boyd miners, essentially what they will do is they will give you a bonus towards that mining ability, right? If you're not mining, you don't get anything. I mean, the NFT is still pretty cool. We've developed the first one. We've been throwing hints out. Let's play around with it a little bit and see, because you're a smart guy, and I kind of want to know if you might actually know who this is. So this person could potentially be credited with developing the internet way back as far as like maybe 1901. He had the idea for essentially what the internet became and what, mobile networks have become, sending signals from, one device to another device.
Okay.
Any ideas?
No. None.
A really expensive car.
What's that?
It's a really expensive car.
A really expensive car?
Yeah.
Oh, the Tesla.
Yeah.
Tesla? Really?
Yeah.
You know what? He totally did too. It's a really expensive car. Like, way to just hand it to me on a silver platter. I actually, now that I just said that, I remember reading about the fact that he basically saw that this was almost inevitable.
Yeah, a man way before his time, for sure. But yeah, yep. We have a lot to I think credit him for. Like, he kind of got lost in obscurity for a while, until he kind of got revived. But like, he was just brilliant. So yeah, this new NFT series that we're going to release for Boyd is essentially kicks off with Tesla, and depending upon the card that you have in your account, you'll get that bonus. Now, we like to kind of make things fun as well. So the other thing that we're doing is we've kind of made a game out of it. Mm-hmm. It's along the same lines as the Uplift art auction, but it's a little bit different. With the Uplift art auction, it was kind of like the person who donated, the most ended up getting the gold or the
like the one of one collectible,
right? Mm-hmm. Which is awesome. Both of us are kind of involved in Uplift Nation, so we're quite happy to be able to see that and have the have the funds go to charity and be a part of history too. I mean, the first music video in entirety ever minted on an NFT. And I don't know, I kind of have a feeling that you might have the first remix ever minted as an NFT, to be honest.
I mean, that's from what we know, it looks that way.
Yeah, so that's pretty awesome too. So but yeah, as opposed to a straight up auction like Uplift Art is running, what Boyd is going to do is we've actually made a game out of it. So you will continually essentially bid for this item, and your Boyd power will kind of be, in fluctuation. And the people who, continually bid for these items will be awarded these items. And I think everyone who bids will actually be awarded an item, but the people who are awarded the gold items are the people who like continuously cycle their bids through. And then that advantage of having that in your account for one season will hopefully be an exponential kind of cascading effect towards increasing your Boyd power and doing that.
It really is a way to track loyalty. I mean, that's kind of what Uplift is doing to a bit of a lesser extent, because we having that, Void is already really, really well gamified, and it's doing its own thing. Like there's a little bit more to it, but what Blue did with the sort of Genesis set, right? Like from the very first drop, if you have one or both of these things, it's going to provide the opportunity to get kind of more airdrops in the future, right? Like a compounding level of sort of benefit to the people that were early adopters, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think this is the potential all around. I think we're in the stumbling blocks of something really interesting here. All of these projects together. I was talking to a friend of mine last night about he's involved in Uplift Nation, he's involved in Uplift Art, he's involved in Boyd as well, and he's also a big fan of Pixios, and we were just kind of tossing around the idea of what seems to differentiate all of these projects, all of these marketplaces, Atomic Assets, and I forget what the other ones are, but some of the other asset marketplaces on Wax from Pixios. And if you're a fan of NFTs and you haven't checked out Pixios, it's well worth it. But in my opinion, Pixios was developed for artists.
Okay.
There's a lot of really cool art on there. And I think that's a very noble thing, and I think it's going to be amazing. And I think that's probably where the high quality art that is displayed, because Pixios also has a partnership with a digital screen company.
So you can like put it up on your wall or something?
Yeah, like basically a digital
cool.
photo frame, right? And that NFT will display, perfect parameters, and I mean, it'll look nice, not like when I try to put a voice post on Chirp and the parameters and the size is all off, and I can't even click the post to button. I'm not really sure what you guys are doing there.
We're working our balls off to make that shit work like that. And like voice isn't a huge priority right now, just because it's smaller, but it's on the list. We finally got like Twitter posts. They call it unfurling, right? Twitter posts unfurl properly. YouTube is pretty good, but this is like, we realized this was going to be the battle from the very little bit, right? Because we were posting links and it's just like, oh look, link text. That's boring as hell. So the right now the Twitter one's going good, and we mentioned this in the last episode briefly. Just yesterday actually, or Tuesday, sorry. I was testing. We're gonna have automatic Twitter posting pretty soon, which is gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds great.
But
I swear, I just had to give you a hard time there.
No, dude, that's we like, again, like startup land. Get that there are far more sites where unfurling is gonna look shitty than look good, and we're gonna fix that. Like we're gonna make it so that as many sites as possible look super pretty when you post links.
I just think out of all the sites that didn't work, it was funny that Voice was the one that didn't work. Like the direct competitor to Voice is Chirp, and that's the one that doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yep.
No, but
it's on the list.
I can totally sympathize with you there. Like I worked for a project once that every time that we posted something on social media, it would just show the logo to the site. It wouldn't show any preview at all.
That was Chirp for the first like this second version like that. It just showed the image for literally every time we posted a link anywhere else. So that obviously had to get dealt with.
Yeah, it's so annoying. But once you get it fixed, But anyway, so back to what I was saying about the digital, picture frame. Essentially, like I can kind of see that's where maybe digital artists will flock, but the Wax ecosystem, I could see a whole ton of potential there with usability NFTs. Like, I mean, everyone's waiting for gaming, and I think that's a noble thing to be waiting for. Whereby gamers there's millions of gamers every day that buy in-game assets, and when they upgrade, those assets are lost. So why not have that gaming why not have that gaming marketplace? I mean, especially, I'm not really sure what's happening now, but I heard that like esports was maybe going to be part of the Tokyo Olympics when it happened. So if you've got an Olympic sport that is like essentially
esports is going to be part of the Olympics.
Well, they were in talks about it. That's what I heard. So wow. I don't know whether I'm not the person to defer to on this or not. But
still, just the idea that for some reason it had never occurred to me that would happen. But I now that it's in my brain, I'm like, no, I like that. That's really good. That's awesome.
Yeah. So so I had my students actually write some reports about it, and it was quite funny. You know what they were saying? It's like, you know, because a lot of people say, oh, they're not really sports, but other people are saying, well, they level the playing field. I mean, you can have an issue with obesity, or you can have an issue with, you know, being able to walk or move, but you still have that option to be able to compete in the regular Olympics.
Right.
I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? So,
but it'll only be good for the Olympics. I mean, that, you know, the number of like the communities that will get, you know, dragged into to the Olympics orbit, I think would be really good. So this is the thing, like as far as like usability and gaming, this is what Kurt sees right off the bat, right? Because like I don't think he's got like a collector's bone in his body. Every once in a while, you know, he sort of makes odes to it with Nifty Wizards, but it's not the whole idea that you would buy something and then somebody else would buy that thing for more later for reasons. There's some wiring in his brain that makes him fucking angry. It doesn't make any sense to him at all. Well, I kind of love him for that, because he's constantly, if an NFT doesn't have a superpower, like if it isn't magic, if it doesn't give you access to something, or if it doesn't give you the power to do something else, you know, he just sees it as much less value. And he's right? Like the idea that any NFT out there can be imbued with some software level of intelligence or usability is just like, that's the real, you know, I think key. I mean, that'll be much, much bigger, I think, than the strict collectibles market, probably by like 2 orders of magnitude.
Well, I mean, and that's what we were talking about at Boyd. It just seems to make sense. I mean, why have to go through all of these processes, jump through hoops, do all of these things? I mean, yeah, okay, fair enough. I'm about to get angry now.
Bring it.
Because what Kurt says about the NFTs is kind of what I say about, you know, digital money and credit cards. I mean, I'm essentially locked out of my bank account in another country right now because, you know, I got to make a long distance phone call to be able to do this, and just annoys me because if it was just in my crypto account, then I could just deal with the stuff that I need to deal with instead of having to, you know, call someone and do something and, you know, make arrangements with something and sign something. I can just, you know, do it. And to me, NFTs are the perfect solution because they are this digital item that can be used for something, right? I mean, comic books are great. I love comic books. I have a ton of them, but I read every comic book that I put in a bag and pretended that it had never been read.
Yeah, because you're not insane like that. Yeah. I think that, yeah, I'm with you there.
So, you know, I bought two of Superman's death issues just so I could open one and read it, you know. But it was like, what I think will happen in the future is that NFTs will become not necessarily currency in themselves, but they're going to kind of be like coupons in a way. Like they're going to kind of be like entry passes in a way.
Yeah, I think I almost feel like the entry pad, like tickets, coupons. I mean, these are words that make sense in the same way that like a pad of paper is like the internet, right? Like they're both means of communication. One of them is slightly more powerful.
yeah, fair enough.
But I agree. I think you're right about the direction that it's going to take.
And I mean, as a musician, you keep throwing tickets out there, but it's fair enough because every time you throw it out there, I think in the back of my mind, and this is brilliant because this could potentially stop, you know, scalpers from buying up all the tickets and then selling them at the door for increased rates. rates.
I mean, it could, or that would depend on how you release it, right? Like if you were gonna do KYC, you could do that. That's one of the issues that I think could happen with the auctions. Like if we sold 1,000 tickets to gain I don't know, early access or whatever we wanted to sell it for, there's nothing stopping somebody right now from coming in and just grabbing them all, unless you were doing some level of KYC, which I think different projects are going to be doing that anyway. So that's going to be interesting on the music thing too. And I've talked to Kurt about this because he keeps thinking about music NFTs as a function of having a system that will only allow you to play the music if you have ownership of the NFT. So you would require like special software to do that or something like that. I think like Emanate works not the same way, but with the same economic theory that the second that you're playing it on their system, micropayments are going out to the authors or the musicians and stuff, which I think is really, really cool. So there's going to be a lot of different, kind of, we're going to have to play around with all these ideas and figure out which one has the best sort of market fit.
Well, I actually think that's probably one of the next things that's coming. And I had someone tell me that's just around the corner that I trust quite a lot. But essentially, there is no reason why you should be able to see NFTs on the blockchain if you don't have ownership of them. And I think that's probably the next step. I would say the next step is for all NFTs that are on the blockchain, when you look at them from a third-party perspective, they're probably watermarked, right? And only if you own the keys for purchasing that NFT can you display it. I think that's kind of where we're headed.
I mean, that I would love to see, and I keep because we have such a laundry list of things to get finished with Chirp right now. But I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot as well. Like, if your profile picture could be an NFT, and to exactly to your point, right? Like if you have to prove ownership to post it, I think that would be a really, really key thing. I mean, I want to, an NFT showplace just off my profile, right? Like I want you to be able to go to my my NFT showroom and see like my top 5, or like in the same way that you would go see my pictures on Facebook, only you're going to see my NFTs. And maybe the top 5 are maybe for sale and maybe for not, right? Like it becomes a potential to be a marketplace as well.
Well, and for artists and photographers, that's huge, right? I mean, because I just think it's huge. Like you want to watch it, that's cool. Every time you watch it, you deposit 0.001 EOS into this account. I mean, it's nothing, and this is what I like about crypto. Honestly, like we've been rambling on for a while, so I do apologize for this, but this is what I like about crypto, because 0.0001 EOS is nothing. 0.00. I did something the other day with Bitcoin, and I looked at it and I was like, this is worth 0.0005 Bitcoin. And I was like, well, that's kind of, oh, wait a minute. That's like the transaction cost. That's nothing. It's like you can transact in these minute accounts and you can have people pay, which people should pay. I mean, I like free shit, but I, think that if you're a musician or if you're an artist, you kind of deserve to be paid. I mean, definitely you deserve to be paid ahead of the American Idol TV show that is taking 90% of your revenue, right?
Right. Yeah, there is no sort of artist friendly economic system.
Yeah.
Although I mean that the longer the internet is around, the more vectors for that kind of thing we can do, which is good. But yeah, I think that's exactly where all this stuff is going. And I'll tell you right now, like I haven't been excited about the music industry for a decade, and now like this remix is really, really fun. I'm releasing 2 original things as event 3 and event 4. With Uplift. And I don't know if that's going to be the actual events, but we've already got a production schedule for songs of mine that M Blue is going to produce, because he's a fucking ridiculous good producer. I'm super stoked about that. And again, like we have the capacity, even while raising money for the charity, like the artists make a little bit from that, and it'll be significantly more than I would make trying to release this just kind of out into the wild, because it's just a cooler thing.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the key. I mean, when Uplift Nation started, kind of our idea behind it was the fact that there's so many places in the world whereby people don't actually have a chance to monetize their own skills. And the places where they do have a chance to monetize their own skills, often they're taken advantage of by obtuse advertising. And I'm not even sure what you would call it, but I mean, if you live in the West, in any Western well-off country, you're bombarded by advertisements to the point that you don't even know what you think anymore,
Yep. Yeah.
And
it's intense.
if you live in the up and coming world, or the third world, you're unbanked. You don't have the potential to be able to create anything. So all across the world, you probably have 90% of the population that, for some reason or another, cannot create something that gains them profit. Not even profit. I mean, their daily bread, essentially. Which to me is crazy as a historian, because if you look back, at history, this is like not even 100 years. I mean, if you look at the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s in America still,
yep,
the majority of people were working for small businesses and creating like community-run environments. I mean, 1970s, 1980s, in the majority of the world, people were still doing this. And it's only been in the last 10, 15, 20 years that corporations have kind of, conglomerized everything under the umbrella of, this is what needs to happen in order for you to be able to live and eat. And when we're becoming depressed, we're becoming sad, we're becoming filtered into this ideology where we're robots. And there's really no necessity for us to be robots, because our robots are so freaking advanced right now.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. Sorry, that was a little bit dark, but there's
no, and I think it
light at the end of that tunnel, because I'm excited about like people being able to create shit. I'm not an artist. I can't draw. I've got a few pictures on my wall. I'm not a musician. I can sing, the Elmo song to my daughter. But
after having heard it 1 million times.
Yes. But I'm a designer. I'm a permaculture designer. I can design an ecosystem for you or for anyone else that you can walk out into your garden. You can pick some fruit. You can pick some vegetables. You can have more nutrients, more minerals. You can be happier. You can save money. This is what I do, right?
Yep.
And so if we get every person into that spectrum of what they do, and I think crypto actually has the potential to do that. The creative,
I think it's starting it already. I think you're right, and it going to the unbanked, and I actually have to we have to call it here, which just means like we have way too much to talk about, because like I now want to talk to you about permaculture stuff. So we're gonna have to I'm gonna talk to you after this, and let's just book like a fucking weekly thing until we get bored, because we have too many things to talk about. But yeah, I think like that even down to the robots and the economics and how cryptocurrency period is going to have the potential to bank literally everybody and connect us all, so that we can actually give people all over the world a chance to join in on the economics of what's coming. I think there's just so much there, endlessly fascinating. JimmyD,
and I do think that we probably do need to, like, you and I, when we talk, I think we have so much awesome things to talk about that sometimes we maybe get off topic, so we should probably end it here. But before we end it, if it's okay, I'd just like to shout out two things, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, go to town.
So two things that I really want your viewers to know: the UX content competition. It's in the chat in the side, and as always, whenever I meet with you, I'm gonna put out a post of this video and put all the links in the post, because I just love talking to you. The second thing is look out for the Boyd NFT. I mean, next time we get to
man,
we can talk.
I want this Boyd NFT, and I've got I gotta get back on Boyd mining actually too. So that'll be fun. So we will absolutely check all those stuff out. Jimmy, seriously, I'm just gonna book you right after this. I just have a call and I need to run into really quickly, and my wife is staring at me needing some coffee that's in the kitchen. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me, Jimmy. You're awesome, man. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure, man.